about teaching, learning, and education in general. I'm your host, Shelby Denman, and today we have a good friend of mine, Brittany Stevens, now Martin, right? She was recently married,
Yes.
so I always get confused on the last name. And Brittany's going to be our guest today. We're going to be talking about aesthetics in education. So before we get started though, Brittany, why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what your experiences in education are, why you went into education, and maybe what some of your long-term goals are.
Okay, so my experience in education is 7th grade math. I taught that in the district we're serving right now, Forney ISD. So I got to have the joy of trying to get some preteens to want to learn some math, some 7th grade math, and doing it all by hand, no calculator. So that was a lot of fun. Now I'm working at our intermediate school, and I'm helping serve the staff, teachers, and students there as a learning specialist. The reason why I got into education is I had an awesome pre-cal and calculus teacher, Miss Kubara, shout out.
What?
And Miss Kubara was her name. I love her.
That's
yeah,
cool.
So anyways, so she was really great. I really did not like math up until then, until I hit my 11th, 12th grade year in high school. I just thought math was stupid. It was multiple choice. It just seemed like we were getting ready for the test. And it wasn't up until pre-cal and calculus that I really saw a lot of the deeper connections and got to have fun with math. So that is why I'm a teacher.
That's awesome.
And some long-term goals kind of go along with that. I wanted to be a teacher ever since I hit 11th, 12th grade when I had her. But I wasn't sure about it, and I went to SFA. I majored in mathematics and had a minor in education. So I want to end up being a professor at a university where it's math education. So I had some really great, it was a great college experience. I had wonderful teachers, but I felt like the part that was missing was that specified math education, how kids learn math and the best way to do that. So that's my goal right now, is to try to get to that level and so I can help future teachers teach the math.
That's really cool. I have a lot of respect for anybody who loves math, because I really don't love math. I had great teachers, but I never had the one that really made it click for me. So I don't know if I was just a special case, but give me history or reading all day, but math. So I have a lot of respect for that. So let's talk about our topic today. Our topic is aesthetics in education. And so one thing that Brittany and I both have in common is we like for things to look good. Like, especially if we're producing something, we like for it to have a look that looks aesthetically pleasing or that is pleasing to the eye. And so we've had several conversations about how in education, that's really important. And Brittany has a really good perspective on that. And so that's why I wanted to have her on today to just talk about, like, why does aesthetics in education matter, and why does it matter in general? So what do you think, Brittany?
Just based on my experience, like I said, I was trying to teach preteens math. I'm doing it all by hand. Math is not probably always the most engaging thing unless you're a math person. I mean, I'm a math person, didn't find out until a lot later. But aesthetics and the way things look, let's take for math a boring worksheet. My kids didn't want to do it. But if I changed it and added some graphics and made it look really cool, then that was really meeting them at where they're at. I mean, they spend all day long looking at Instagram, Facebook, all of these things that are aesthetically pleasing to them, that look a certain way. And that is just where our kids are at now. So kind of the graphics and the whole way things look was almost like a hook for them, where let's just take some two-step equations. Do an activity with that, maybe just with some snowmen because it's around Christmas time. I don't know, just some crazy stuff to make it more appealing to them, to, in their brain, have more positive emotions to what we're doing instead of just a worksheet. So that's kind of where I come from. And then working even with adults, you're going to have more buy-in when you see something immediately. Just like when you meet somebody for the first time, it's just first couple seconds. First impressions are everything. And so having something more appealing to look at or work through, it's going to be a lot more engaging for your learners.
Yeah, we've talked about that before a little bit, just how people nowadays, whether you're working with adult learners or student learners, you're inundated with visual images on a day-to-day basis. And those visual images are competing for your attention, essentially. And in education, we've been dropped into that market to where kids are having their attention, everything is vying for their attention in a way that I don't think that we've had before, that we've had to face that level of competition before our generation. Would you agree?
I completely agree. Completely agree with that.
You can go. Sorry, you can go.
Oh, so, and just going back to it is just all this stuff is not new too. It's more new now, I guess, because of the technology and how much we can do. Technology ups the ante with being able to make something visually appealing. Because I mean, we're not all artists, so it's not like we can draw all this stuff, but we have graphic designs, marketing, it's like everywhere. Advertising, it's getting their attention. And so that's what we always try to do with education, is try to hook them in attention grabber, basically. So that's something that designs and aesthetics can help you with. But again, it's not new, because even back in ancient times, there was a certain way, like it was either the Greek or the Romans that had the golden ratio. All of their buildings had the certain proportions and everything like that. So how things look matter. And even we can start going into, I'm a math nerd, so I'm talking about this, like look up the golden ratio, Fibonacci's spiral. There's a certain way, and it's even this golden ratio, I believe, can be found in the Mona Lisa, is the proportions. So just the way things look.
Like, for somebody who's not familiar with the golden ratio, so I'm not a math person, but from my understanding with the golden ratio, there are proportions, like even to like your face, to where people are found to be more attracted to this perfect proportion of face, right? Is that essentially what it boils down to?
Yes. There's actually a mathematics book.
Had the golden ratio or something. Like it was like a whole thing of the stars, because that was really important reading. But
well, and there's like even an old math book, and I think it's called The Divine Proportion is what the book's called. It's like heavenly, because it's whatever's going on in our brains. It's saying, oh, that's, so there's a thing with art and things like where you can say something subjectively appealing or something that's objectively appealing. And so that's kind of where that's coming from, is that for whatever's going on in our brains, it's saying, okay, this is good, this is appealing, and it's just really kind of almost a fact just of how our brain's in taking that information. So
you're saying, like, at our basic core, whether we want to be or not, we're going to be more attracted to or able to pay attention to something that is more visually appealing, whether you're doing that on a conscious or like you're doing that on a subconscious level.
Yes, and that's definitely what you're doing, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think that that's going to get lost in education. I think it's just an extra tool we can use to meet our kids where they're at and how they already think.
I like that. I like that being a tool we can use, because I think sometimes teachers or educators think, well, I shouldn't have to do that. I'm not an artist, or I'm not in marketing. But kind of really this generation we are, and it is a tool that we can use to help either engage students or really, and also open their mind to some concepts that maybe they wouldn't have understood in a different way.
Yes. And I mean, even going back to it of why Teacher Pay Teachers is so popular. And I know, for instance, that I've found some stuff on there, but,
The craftivities. Have you heard that? That's like an elementary saying?
Yeah.
The craft activity.
And it's just because of the way it looks, and that's why people are buying these things. I know for myself, like I've bought something and then realized the content wasn't there. So I had to go back and add in good content, but I found myself not buying it because of the content. I knew the content better and what my kids needed. I ended up just liking it because of the way it looked. So the same concept can be said for our kids too, is if we like the way it looks and we're engaged with it, I think they are too. So.
That's cool. So I kind of am naturally drawn to a design eye. Like, I'm not saying I'm a graphic designer, because I'm not. I'm an educator, but I do like to have things to have a certain look. But what about the educator who's watching or listening who says, yeah, but that's not me. Like, I don't naturally have an ability to do that. What are some tools that you found? Because for those of you who have never seen Brittany's stuff, it looks good. And she was actually just showing me a math activity that she built. But again, I hate math, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to solve it. Like while she was talking, I zoned out because I was trying to solve this emoji equation. So what are some tools that you could give somebody that says, that's not what comes natural to me, I would need some tools? What are some basic steps, some basic tools that you could give somebody?
So what I use, which is not super sophisticated, our district's one-to-one with Chromebooks, so that's why I started doing this, is I just started looking up, like I said, teacher pay teachers. I was like, how do they do that? How do they make this look so good? So I started looking up YouTube videos, and a lot of it was going to Google Slides. So a lot of the stuff that I make, and including a coaching manual we worked on this summer, was all through Google Slides. They have some really nice templates. Now I take these templates as more of the pieces, and then I just add in the content I want there. So that's something that I use.
Would you go to Google Slides for the template, or you would go search like Google for Google Slide templates?
I would just put Google Slides template. Yeah, I would go to Google, type into the search bar, Google Slides template, and there's so many different ones. I use these with different presentations, but even for the manual, I was able to do that. And taking that and then just tweaking it however I want it to. But also kind of doing some studying.
Give something that I learned with that, and it could have been through you or maybe one of the other learning specialists. So I don't typically design in Google Slides, but now that we've been building this virtual content, I realized, someone taught me, you can change the page dimensions on Google Slides to be 8.5 by 11. So that while I'm designing in Google Slides, which is, it's pretty easy to design in there, it prints right. Because I didn't like it because it didn't print right. It's not the right dimensions. But if you go into and change the page dimensions to 8.5 by 11, now you're designing on an actual page size, which is a game changer.
Yes, great point, Shelby. I've been doing it so long I even forgot that that was something other people might not know. So changing it.
How are they doing this? How do they make it the right size? So it was a new tip for me. So.
Yeah, you just go to File and then Page Setup, and then you change those, and you can do 8.5 by 11 or 11.5 by 8, and then you're able to do it like landscape or portrait. Yep. Is usually how we print. But it's a great tool. I know that we talked about Canva is something that has really good graphics on there. We've been doing virtual learning stuff, so Genially is a really cool site. I would say check it out. I've basically just been dabbling in it. Game changer. It's so cool. It looks so good. Padlet, there's a lot of different tools, but I'd say if you're trying to make your own and just try to experiment with it, Google Slides is probably the most user-friendly thing just to get started on it.
Yeah, and I'd say Canva's probably, in terms of user-friendliness, it's a step up from Google Slides, because I think if you're using Google Suite, like G Suite, you're used to the commands on Google. Canva, I like to think of it as like, so my husband does some graphic design and he uses Photoshop. So Canva is like a user-friendly Photoshop, because I don't think Photoshop is as user-friendly to the beginner as Canva is. And there's a ton of templates that you can do: newsletters, designs, posters, headers, and I do a lot of work in there. And then to just kind of elaborate on that Genially. So Genially is an interactive format. And so it's like there's things moving. So you could do a presentation, almost the same concept as a Google slide, and things are moving within there and you can click on it. And so it creates a interactive product for the user, and it has those free templates. So I want to play a game. Just thinking right now, there's a Snakes and Ladders game. So all I have to do is type in my words and the game is there. There's some escape room games. And so I love Genially. Like, that one's so cool. But again, I'm just kind of dabbling in it as well. Those are some good points. Okay, so another thing, I'm gonna switch gears here. So one thing that Brittany and I like to talk about is aesthetics. I mean, we talk about more than that, but our conversations talk about that. But also, one thing I find interesting about Brittany is she is always up on the most recent conspiracy theories too. So, I am. What's the conspiracy theory now? Because I know we talked about the Area 51 thing for a while, how the government was hiding some stuff. I'm not saying you believe that. I'm just saying she exposed me to a line of thinking. So what's new on your radar? What should we know about?
Well, kind of it goes with this is Social Dilemma. It's a kind of documentary that's on the Netflix. Mind blowing.
Mind blowing.
trying to figure out what you like. We're talking about engaging students. Like, all of these social media things, it's not just trying to be engaging, they're trying to make you addicted to it. And they're doing it in the most sophisticated, scientific way that is scary with algorithms.
Marketing psychology, that's what, I mean, I saw it. That's what they were talking about. Like, they understand your psychology and how to tap into that on a technological basis.
Yeah, like even down to how long you're looking at something. Like, we're talking about saying it looks good or not. They're taking it down to the millisecond of how long you're looking at it, and they're already making a web of, okay, I'm going to take you here next, this. They are getting to know you on a way that you don't even know yourself. And that's why I know I've done it, where I've went to bed and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go check Facebook. All of a sudden, I'm an hour later down a video rabbit hole.
Oh,
and it's just video after video.
What is your rabbit hole videos? I'll tell you my rabbit hole of videos. What's your rabbit hole of videos?
Okay, so my rabbit hole videos are, I think his name's Trey Kennedy. He's like, mimics like girl voices and stuff. And he's always talking about basic girls, and I don't know why, I just identify with that so much, and I just think it's hilarious. And he'll do middle schoolers, and since I worked in middle schoolers, I'm like, oh, nailed it. So that puppy animal videos, love them. I'm just like, oh, it's so cute. And so it's just really comedy, and then like animal stuff is really just my
things that I like. And so, I mean, I really, after watching the documentary, feel like it knows me more than I know myself. So I guess by saying it thinks I like the cookie decorating videos. Like, you know, those hours, like during the pandemic, I could just get sucked in. Like if I had a long day, just sucked in and hours of, oh, and now we're on Halloween cookies. I don't know. I don't bake cookies, and I don't really eat that many. I mean, I probably eat more than I should, but to watch people decorate them, I like it.
So, and I think it's so interesting how Netflix did that show, even though Netflix is doing it too. They're seeing what their Netflix movies are getting so good because they're looking at algorithms of what type of movies are popular and the plot lines, and all they're doing is duplicating that, and they're making it into a Netflix show. So my next conspiracy theory is one that I made up, that I think Netflix is going to put everything out of business just because they have the most data of what stuff's coming from, because everybody watches Netflix now.
That's true.
Mark my words, you heard it here first.
Oh man, now I'm scared. Okay, so before we leave, I've really enjoyed having you on our webinar today, because I find your thoughts very timely, because I think that this is a topic that's facing education today, and I think it makes a huge difference in the impact that we're able to make with students. So I appreciate you sharing your ideas on that and for being on our show today. So before we leave, I just want to give you an opportunity. What is some encouragement that you would like to share with educators? So what do you want to share that would encourage any of the people watching or listening to us today?
So 2020 has been rough. It's been hard. It's crazy. Even with where we're at in education, I'm doing virtual learning and in-person learning and trying to keep everybody safe. And I mean, we were already like cleaning everything beforehand because we work in schools and kids get sick all the time. But this is just a whole new level of trying to keep everybody safe. So I just encourage everybody to treat this year, and especially the end we're coming to a close of, as an experiment. Nobody knows what the right thing to do is because we've never been in this before. So even if you're going into the graphic designs, just try something out, try to get some feedback, but just take this as an experiment. I think Thomas Edison was the person that said, I didn't fail 10,000 times, I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work. And so I just encourage you to use all of these opportunities as just not take it as a failure, take it as a learning opportunity. We can do hard things and we can learn through it. So it's an experiment. Nobody knows what's going on. We're just hanging in there, and let's just figure out some things while we're doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on here. Thank you guys for watching and for listening to us. We'll see you next week on the Ed Exchange.
Thanks for having me, Shelby.